Welcome, everyone. Would like to welcome you to this episode 7 of the Cyberquery Discovery webinar series. My name is Jim Maughan, and I'll be doing part of the presentation. The majority of the presentation is going to be done by Doug Hicks. Most of you probably know Doug from either training or consulting or the support line. He's one of the friendly voices you'll talk to on our support group. We also have Paul Engelbert, who's the Director of Professional Services, and Jeff Dabbert, one of our senior system architects. So they're here to support Doug and myself if there's any questions that come up that we can't handle. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through a few PowerPoint slides, and then Doug's going to take over and show you a demonstration of how to build real-time dashboards with Cyberquery. So let's get started. What we'd like to do today is remind everybody that the whole purpose of these webinars are to advance your Cyberquery skills and knowledge base. We are doing these for you. There's no sales involved here. So really customer driven. So what we like to do is at the end of every session, we're going to have a survey. That survey is going to prompt you for what topics you'd like to see presented here over the next few months. And just ask you to block out the third Wednesday of each month at this time, 2 o'clock Pacific, or sorry, 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific, and 1 o'clock Central, and noon Mountain Time. So they're going to be every month, and we'll have a new guest presenter each month, just like Doug is doing that today. So what we're going to do on today's topic is we're talking about real-time dashboards with Cyberquery. And what that means is we're going to cover how to build them. Now, most of you already know how to build a dashboard or a composed dashboard or reports. Doug's going to show you how to take those and make those real-time, and also how to schedule them and how to automate them, because you may have a situation where you want to scroll through multiple dashboards and reports as part of this presentation. So Doug's going to cover all of that. We'll also leave time at the end for questions and answers. But if a question does come up, feel free to type it into the question dialog box from Zoom, and we'll ask those at the appropriate time. So what we wanted to do is kind of show this little graphic of what we really are talking about. So these real-time dashboards can be something that you set up out on the shop floor. They might be something in the executive suite, or maybe in the entryway that just shows kind of real-time auto refresh of what's going on, performance metrics, kind of what to expect, and just set these up in any display area. So really anything with a browser. So that all new smart TVs have got a browser. You'll be able to use those with your Cyberquery real-time dashboards. So with that introduction, I'm going to turn the time over to Doug and let Doug take it from here.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. And I wanted to say welcome to everyone. Glad to have you here today. As you mentioned, in today's session, we're going to be covering an auto refresh technique that you may or may not be aware of. And what this technique does is it allows you to use Cyberquery reports that have been developed or designed to monitor real-time performance metrics and automatically refresh these results on a regular time interval, like every 30 seconds, every 5 minutes, whatever time interval is desirable for you. You can choose to display these reports on your own PC if you wanted to personally monitor these metrics. Or you could choose, as he said, to display them on a large monitor in common areas so that information is available to others in your organization. So for example, on a shop floor, you could display the jobs that are currently in queue to help you determine which steps might be next in the production process. Or you could have a series of KPI reports which contain metrics to alert yourself or others when some of those metrics fall below range, indicating that action might need to be required. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start by demoing a few of the different report options that are available to show you what can be done. I'll start off with a single report. I'll also show you how to switch between multiple sites and display information across different sites. I'll show you how to display different reports or metrics so you can kind of see multiple glances at how things are going. And then I'll show you the dashboard option where you can take multiple Cyberquery reports and you can put them into a single frame. Once we've gone through a demo of the report options, then I'll show you on the technical side how you can implement those on your site. Okay. So I'm going to start by opening the web browser. And I'll begin with the single report option. So I've created favorites on my browser to make it easier to get to those specific reports instead of having to remember where they are. So I'll click on the single report option. Now it's going to challenge me for my username and password. So I'll type that in. And now you can see I've got a report that's been refreshed as of 12:06. You can see that in the top left corner. And this is a really good practice if you're going to be displaying reports. You can have a refreshed timestamp up at the top so people know as they're looking at this how recent the data has been refreshed. So in this report, it's basically a work center and job operation details report that kind of breaks down the important information about the jobs that are in your queue, quantities associated with it, dates, some of the hours associated with these projects. So at a glance, you can get an idea of where you're at and how we're doing. Okay. So that's an example of just presenting a single report. I'm now going to switch over and show you a different report that allows it to cycle between different sites. And as I mentioned, sites, we're talking about CSI sites. So if I click on this multi-site option, it's still presenting the same job operation details. And I can see at the top that this was for the Dallas site. Now you can see that site has switched over so I can see the operation details for my LA site. And then finally the London site. So in my environment, I've got 3 sites. So it's going to cycle back once it gets done with London. It's going to cycle back to the first site, which is Dallas. Okay, so that's an example of a multi-site report that you can display and update. The third option is you've got multiple reports that present different information about the organization. So I'll click on this. And so you can see right now, this is more of a detail level operations report, showing you quantities, dates, hours associated with these jobs. Again, it has the refresh time at the top, so you know how current the data is. And then now it's switched to a different report that's looking at efficiency from an employee basis. And you can see it's even got conditional highlighting in here, which is kind of neat, where if you've got an efficiency metric that's fallen below a certain threshold, you can go ahead and highlight that so that it becomes more apparent. And then finally, a third report that gives you efficiencies by items, jobs, and work centers with an efficiency metric at the very end of it. Okay. And then the last one that I'm going to show is an example of using the compose feature in Cyberquery to present multiple reports together in a single frame. That's this dashboard metrics. You can see over here, it's actually connecting out to the database and it's pulling the records. And once it's done pulling those records, it'll present that information so that you can display it. I've still got my refresh time, and I've got a graphical representation of some of the key metrics, followed by a second Cyberquery report that gets into some of the details that might be relevant to this particular graph. Okay. So that's kind of a review of at least a few of the different options that are available for reporting and getting some of these metrics and KPIs available to view. Now let's talk about how do we get that into a frame where we can actually do this. So I'm going to go ahead and switch out of the demo, and I'm going to go back to my main page for Cyberquery. And let's say that you're in the Launchpad and you have this manufacturing report that you've developed, Efficiency by Work Center. And you're running this report and you decide, you know what, this would be a really good example of something that I'd like to display for others to be able to see. Okay. How do I get that from being right now, it's a published report in my Launchpad web portal. How do I get that from being a published report in my web portal to being an auto refresh? So I'm going to start by copying this URL into from my browser. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this into a Notepad doc, just so you can kind of see what that URL looks like. And we're going to kind of break this down and discuss what are the different components of this URL so that we can understand how we need to structure this, where we need to put the files in order to make them refreshable. So the first portion of this URL is pretty straightforward. It's an HTTP reference, which means it's coming from a web browser. This is my Cyberquery server name, and this is the port that we're listening on. And all of your URLs for Cyberquery reports will have this common prefix. The next component of this is the actual application name. And this application name is a prefix. You've got probably multiple applications in your environment. This application prefix goes back to your ACS configuration file. Some of you may be very familiar with this file, others maybe not. But in this ACS config file, there is a prefix that allows us to determine all the settings that are relevant to this particular environment, this reporting environment. So that's what this next ingredient is to our URL. The next keyword in this is the web reports keyword. And that has specific meaning to us. It means that we need to go in and look at a setting in your ACS config file called web reports _ path. This path defines all the Cyberquery directories that we might want to incorporate into web-based reporting. The first of this web reports path, I'm sure probably everyone has something similar, is the directory location where all my published reports live. This would be the portal that the end users use when they click on the Launchpad link. So let's start by just going into that directory path, and we can see what's in there. I'll go ahead and open a File Explorer session, paste this address into my File Explorer, and you can see under here, there are some top-level folders. Those folders correspond to, and let me shift gears back. Those folders correspond to the areas of your Launchpad. So these are the different areas where content has been published. And you can see right now we've got manufacturing, sales, and shipping. On the left-hand side of our Launchpad, manufacturing, sales, and shipping. So that's really all that is. So from this Launchpad content home, any other references beyond that are either going to be directory paths. So in this case, we're looking in the manufacturing area. And inside of that manufacturing area, we're looking at an actual query, Cyberquery report called Efficiency by Work Center .eq. You can see that by drilling into here. And here's that query. Okay. So when you're taking content and putting it into an area, there are two key files that are associated with presenting this particular report. There's the EQ, or the query, and that's really the logic of this particular report. And what do I mean by that? The logic is the columns that I'm going to be displaying. If I've got any sorting that's required for this particular report, the sorts, any kind of filtering that I'm doing for this report. It's the logic that's required to go out to your database and pull this information in. That's the EQ. The other piece of this is the CQF, or the format file. So what the format file does for us is it allows us to change kind of the look and feel of this particular report. So an example, at the very top, I've got a title, and that title, the font has been increased to make it more, pop out a little more. It's been turned bold along with these item headings. I've made those bold. I've even added a highlight for my refresh time to make it a little more visible for people to see. And then I've even got grid lines within here that kind of give you a grid and make it easier to kind of see different rows of data in this particular report. That's the format file. So in order for me to be able to present this in the same fashion, I need these two particular files. So I'm going to grab these files, and where am I going to put them? So the other web reports path is a folder called web reports. And I'm going to take these two files from my Launchpad portal area, and I'm going to put them in this other web path so that they can still be viewed through a browser. And this web reports folder has two main purposes. One is, if I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with drill down reports, but one option is if you've created a top level parent report, you can use a drill down report to look at other various data that's associated with it. And I do have a quick example of the drill down, just in case you're not familiar with it. So let's say in my parent Launchpad area, I've got an orders by site report. This gives me a high level look at quantity ordered and shipped based upon site and date. The drill down report, which is what would be saved into the web reports folder, is linked to these parent reports. So I can click on any one of these sites, and it's going to go into that web reports folder, and it's going to run the drill down report for the site that I selected. That's the concept of a drill down report. And that's one of the types of files that we would put into the web reports folder. The other, of course, is what we're talking about today, which is the auto refresh. So I've got the query and the format file. I will copy those. And then I'm going to go into that special web reports folder and paste a copy of those two files into this folder. Looks like I already have them in there. So I'm just going to overwrite them. Okay. Now this makes this report available by a URL, but outside of the framework of the portal. Okay. So what does that URL look like compared to the Launchpad? It's going to have this same first portion all the way down to the web reports. And then beyond that, it's going to have either subdirectories if I've buried those reports under a subdirectory in my web reports folder, or in this case, I put it at that top level web reports folder. So all I really need at this point to create a URL to point to that report is to go ahead and finish out. This is my report. It's in my web reports path. I'm running against my CSI 10 application on this particular server. I'll go ahead and take that. I'll open up a new tab just to show you. Paste it in, press enter. And now this report is capable of being automatically refreshed. It's in the right area and it's got the right ingredients. Okay, so how do I get this from being a static report that ran at 1220 to a dynamic report that's going to refresh at whatever time interval I need? That requires the use of another file called an HCF, or an HTML control file. And inside of that HTML control file is going to be a string that I'm going to put in here. And this string right here is what allows this browser to understand I want to do a refresh. And this is the interval in number of seconds that I want to use for that. So I can either copy this and put it into that HCF, or if I already have another report that has an HCF, which coincidentally I do, and that's going to have the same kind of content in it, I'll just show you. Did it come up? Oh, it's on the other screen. So give me a second. I'll drag it over, or attempt to drag it over. There it is. So this is an existing HCF with the key ingredients to be able to refresh this every 30 seconds. Okay. So instead of recreating the wheel, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, paste it. And the way that it is flagged to be tied to this particular report is to give it the same name as the query you're trying to run. So I'm just going to do a rename on this, copy that name into buffer because my typing is terrible. I'm going to do a rename on this guy and give this HCF file the same name as the query that I want to refresh. And that's kind of how that's done. Now, this browser may not know about this particular HCF. So I could either rerun this or refresh the screen. And you can see it's updated as of 1222. If we give it 30 seconds, we should be able to see that value change to a more recent date and time. So that's kind of how it's done. The query, the EQ, the format file, the HCF, those are kind of the moving parts, and you can see it just refreshed. All right, so kind of come back to here. So again, the high-level overview of the steps. You develop the report, the EQ and the CQF to present the metrics you want. You save those into the web reports folder. You create the report name.hcf with the refresh, the desired refresh rate, or the EQ if you're the macro. If you've got a macro, it's the same kind of concept, but you just create that HCF to match the macro name if you have to do a multi-pass like the compose dashboard. And then you figure out how to point the browser to the appropriate report, and you're done.
Okay. Hey, Doug, a question came in about, will this work with any browser?
Yes, we support all the major browsers, Chrome, Edge, Firefox. So, yep.
Okay, great. And one more question came in. What version of Cyberquery do I need to be able to use these auto refreshes?
It has been around almost as long as I have. So any recent version of Cyberquery would work. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be at a version where this kind of feature would be accessible to them.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, Doug, well, thank you very much. Okay, so want to thank Doug for that presentation and remind people that we will make a copy of this session available to you. So at the end of this webinar, you should receive a survey asking for your input. Was the time well spent? Any questions you might have, you can also request examples, and we can send you those as well. It'll also, give you a list of upcoming sessions, and we'd like you to prioritize those for us, just to decide what topics we're going to cover next. Here are a few of them. So, using subqueries, efficiency reports, Cyberquery AI. By the way, Cyberquery AI, we're sending that out to beta partners this week or early next week. So if you'd like to get in the queue for that, just let us know. We'll also talk about Excel add-ins and budget versus actual reporting. And then again, if you've got items that you'd like to add to the list, please enter those as part of that survey. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Doug or to our support line. So let's see if there's any other questions that have come in. I think we've got the two that have come in. So if any other pop up, feel free to email us. Just in terms of wrap up, please complete the survey. If you have any questions, contact me or support. We also have our training URL in there. So if you want to get training on how to do some of these things, you can click right there and sign up for the probably going to be covered in the advanced class. But we should be good from there. So I want to thank everybody for coming and look forward to seeing you next month. So thanks again.